Thank you for auditing Professor Skye's Record Review, the only first listen new music review show hosted by a French professor immediately after teaching the final Friday class of the semester. It's going well. You see here all the seltzer behind me. You see the kids, they call me Papi because they were born in California, and I like that. I think it's a cool name, you know? And they call Drake Champagne Papi, and I tried to get the kids to call me Seltzer Papi, but it just never took. They just call me Dad. But that's why I have all the seltzer back there. I thought it was going to be a funny joke. It's not really. I'm the Seltzer Papi. So I'm going to be reviewing Drake's new Dark Lane demo tapes. It's an album, it's a mixtape. I don't know. I'll get into that distinction soon. But I wanted to get this review out because actually what I wanted to do is give myself time to really meditate on the nature and the meaning of Drake and ask you this question. Is Drake, is his ubiquity in pop culture, in hip-hop, in pop, is his ubiquity, get ready for some high-caliber, high-cost graphics, is Drake a blessing or a curse? How do we perceive of Drake? Has he done more harm than good? Has he done more good than harm? I'm going to sort of weigh both of these options. In general, my overall take, and I'm not trying to keep you on the hook here. I'm just going to tell you how I feel. In general, I would say he's a blessing. We could do a lot worse than being stuck with Drake. Okay? Again, I grew up in the 90s at a time where Billy Joel's music was everywhere. Drake is awesome compared to Celine Dion or even Hammer, okay? Seriously, I mean, we could do a lot worse than a truly charismatic rapper who has something about him that has some kind of transcendent quality where he's able to be in all, you know, he's able to be a TV star and a rap star and a fashion guy and a sports guy. He's able to do all these things. I think we are lucky. I think my children are lucky to grow up in the era of Drake. In a lot of ways, he's more interesting than definitely more interesting than the pop stars of the 90s and NSYNC and all that. He's not fabricated, he's not created. He's a very strange, and as I will get to, important person. So, I think he's a blessing. I think he's a blessing because he can actually rap when he wants to. The song 0 to 60 is just great. That's just some of my favorite rapping ever done. Did he write those lines? I don't know. Curse. He might not write any of his own lyrics. But let's stick with the blessing. When he wants to rap, he can. The curse, he doesn't usually want to rap. He usually wants to mumble and just sort of say things, you know, kind of mumble under his breath and complain about stuff. Another curse of Drake is that Hot 97 and hip-hop radio in general kind of sucks. And it's kind of his fault. Not his fault, but the fact that music like him, kind of semi-superficially emotional, trap-driven R&B / hip-hop, rules hip-hop radio is basically because of him. That's a real strike against him. What's another blessing, you might ask? He is proof of concept of the importance of hip-hop as an international phenomenon. I am very close to getting a hip-hop minor approved at my college, which I'll be talking more about if it goes through. And part of the principle is that why would a French teacher be the person leading this? Because hip-hop is international. It is the voice of the voiceless. It helps you to understand the people in a society that society at large tries to marginalize and forget. By being a very prominent Canadian of African descent, he is doing something very important just by his very existence. And then the fact that the biggest rapper in the world is not American is actually proof of hip-hop's importance. That it goes beyond America and that it is an international phenomenon that does not know race, gender, or even nation. Another blessing of Drake, do yourself the favor and watch the 3 or 4 interviews he's done with Narduwar. If you're not familiar with Narduwar, I was introduced to him by Lil Uzi Vert last year. He's this Canadian music journalist who's maybe the best music journalist since Lester Bangs. He's unbelievable. He does unbelievable interviews. And in his interviews with Drake, it's a sort of Canadian to Canadian thing. You see the real human side of Drake. which he constantly hides. He constantly puts on armor and tries to seem cooler than he is. You know, there's this sort of cliche of like the athlete putting on their Beats headphones and tuning out the world. Like he sort of tries to transmit that sense of internal armor to the world. But in those interviews with Narduwar, where Narduwar digs deep and talks about how his uncle invented slap bass and all this crazy stuff, you get to the real person behind the mask. And a real blessing is part of what makes Drake's music so great is that underneath all of that bluster, there's actually a really great artist and a really interesting person. This gets to the much larger blessing of Drake. This concept is stupid, but I'm just gonna put that aside. The much larger concept of why is he a blessing for us? In a way, he is the soundtrack of our lives right now. Like, I think if you took Imagine Dragons and Drake, like that is essentially the background noise of the late teens, early 20s. His sound of trap drums, unbelievably bassy and sparse music. That is essentially the soundtrack of our lives. Everywhere we go, every time someone drives by or we walk by a house, it's this sound. And in the thematics, this alternating between superficial pop emotion and hyper-capitalist swagger. This is our culture. This is our civilization right now. The blessing of Drake is the blessing of all great artists. I mean the greatest artists. And great not in terms of the best, but in terms of the most important, is that they do the best job of reflecting our zeitgeist. Zeitgeist, if you don't know, is a German word that means spirit of the times. And nothing reflects our zeitgeist better than Drake. This person who is all genres and no genres, who's all races and no races, who's both totally superficial and totally deep, who just floats around in a world of sort of social media buzz and celebrity culture while actually being able to produce some excellent music. An interesting thing about Drake and why he reflects our zeitgeist so well. I'm about to make a really deep point, which makes me regret this stupid thing and the Seltzer Papi idea. But just hang tight. This is one of my best ideas I think I've had on this entire channel. Is that the primary thematic of Drake, and I'm not a Drake expert, so feel free to correct me in the comments, okay? My ignorance is profound. But I've listened to a lot of Drake. The primary thematic in Drake's music is loneliness amongst the multitudes, okay? This is a theme that actually was really first developed by Baudelaire in his Peintre de la vie moderne in the 19th century, where he talks about modern culture in which you are both in the ocean of people while also being totally alone. That's what Drake is. That's his constant theme, that nobody understands him and everybody loves him. That everybody wants to talk to him and he just wants to be alone in his bed. He is the perfect vehicle for understanding our social media and our technological day, in which we are constantly surrounded by more and more people, more and more followers, subscribers. Thank you, please subscribe. I'm over 1,700, it's crazy. Subscribers, followers, friends, but yet our isolation gets deeper. And he is so obsessed with that it's like a joke. Like you could just do a mega cut of Drake songs of him just saying how goddamn lonely he is and how many people are around him, and it would take 45 minutes to listen to the whole thing. This is where we are. We are in an age where we are bathed in a community of people at all times while being completely dry, alone, and isolated. That's his gift. That's his greatest blessing. Is that when archaeologists and anthropologists, probably not archaeologists, I meant to say anthropologists, when anthropologists look back at our days and they think, what was it like? Well, this Drake fella seemed to have his finger on it because he was always talking about how lonely he is and how many people there are around him. So that's our gift. And it goes beyond the fact that what's the other things that he raps about? Well, he raps about hypercapitalism. And we live in an age of hypercapitalism. We live in an age where money and the desires of the rich are above the needs of the poor. He represents that to us as well, while also constantly leaving little tiny breadcrumbs of emotional truth. There's the greater emotional truth of the loneliness of wealth, the loneliness of popularity, the loneliness of electronic communication. And then there's the more specific truths that he lets out here and there, which his biggest song, he explains the only thing he loves are his mother and his bed. Paging Dr. Freud. Okay. The one thing I came up with today that I think is the best way to describe Drake's music, is that his music is the soundtrack to a group of friends who are all scrolling through their phones at the same time. We've all been there, at a dinner, at a party, just hanging out, and you and your friends are all there, and you're all together, but you're all just scrolling through. You're all with somebody else and alone. You're with your friends and alone. Nobody loves me. Everybody thinks I'm the greatest. She wants to love me, but I can't because I only love my mom, and I love my mom in my bed. That feeling, that emotion, that connectedness and lack of connectedness is the entire artistic output of Drake summarized. Thank you, Drake, for existing. Thank you for doing this. I'm giving myself goosebumps because I'm so proud of this idea. I can't help it. I really enjoy doing this channel. I love getting these ideas out. Do you like this idea? Do you get what I'm saying? Am I being too abstract when I say that Drake's music is the soundtrack for scrolling through your phone while hanging out with your friends? Or do you get it? My hope is that you get it on some deeper level that goes beyond explanation, that I didn't explain it that well, but you know exactly what I mean. I'm the Seltzer Papi, damn it. I'm gonna get this going. Let's get to another curse of Drake's music. He doesn't evolve musically at all. He has like a stable of producers who all make the same goddamn Drake music. Like, I'm not even going to play you 14 seconds of his new album because it sounds like the last album. Nah. You start off with some kind of mumble. Look, listen. Yo, damn. Then the trap drums come in, and then some kind of other element comes in to make it more interesting. But it's just all the same. Some kind of sing-songy chorus that he kind of mumbles through. But maybe that's a blessing. Maybe this consistency is a blessing. I don't know. He did kind of introduce the modular construction that I discussed in my third ever video. Don't watch it. I don't know. I don't know if it's any good. Screw it. I'm going to put a link to my third video. It might have been good. I talk about the modular construction of In My Feelings, and I compare it to the Beach Boys. Which is actually kind of a cool idea. You know, do watch that. It's going to be a good video. It's just pretty old. You know, so he did innovate that, and his whole style did change rap forever. So even though he doesn't evolve, he did help evolve rap and sort of take whatever Kanye was doing with 808. He's the middle child between Kanye 808 and all the SoundCloud rappers. Jeez, that's kind of a curse. Another kind of curse is that with so much material, at a certain point, you just feel like he just puts out units of Drake. He's just selling widgets. He's selling soda. He's selling cases of seltzer. And you just get a unit of Drake. And you just put in, and it all sounds the same, and it gives you the same feeling, and the same thematics, and you put it in, and there's kind of like one new song, and then you just go, okay, moving on. That's kind of a curse as well. But a blessing. The overall quality is pretty strong, and like anything else that's consistent and good, like Wegmans brand seltzer water, it's not so bad to have something consistently good that keeps on coming back. So there's my overall take on Drake. I think he's a blessing. I think we're lucky to have him. I think we need somebody new to take over, because it's like it's been like, my son was like, how long has he been on top? Like, how long has he been on top? And just doing the same thing. I mean, Jay-Z's been on top for a long time, but he bought the goddamn Brooklyn Nets, right? I mean, he stayed on top, but he had to do a lot to stay there. What does Drake do besides just release the same album every couple of years? How does he do it? It's charisma, I think. Okay, so now I'm going to go track by track in my pink Citroën. I'm going to take you through this entire album. I don't think I'm going to miss any tracks. I'm going to go through pretty quickly because there's not that much to say. Because when you listen to Drake, you are listening to a unit of Drake. Drakeness. Opening track is Deep Pockets. Pretty typical. I like his specific references to places in Toronto. I like how he constantly references Toronto. I like Toronto. I live 3 hours from it. It's closer to me than New York City, even though I live in New York State. It's one thing that's great about him. I also like he said that he lives in a house that used to be his home screen. That's just kind of a beautiful image, aspirational. Kind of a singy chorus. This is the most Drake-ish Drake song ever. Just, it's very simple, nice singy chorus. The next track, When to Say When, has kind of an old Kanye-style soul sample in the back. He seems to be talking about like maybe dropping out of the music game. I don't think he's going to. Then Chicago Freestyle, which has an amazing guest appearance by someone named Giveon? I don't know who this is, but he has a beautiful, beautiful voice. And he does something that a lot of soul singers these days try to do, which is project vulnerability, but he does it convincingly. It's an excellent track. But then it's weird, because the chorus is just copying an Eminem song, talking about how women can't be trusted and they can be replaced. And this all brings up the question of what is this album, right? It's a mixtape, so this is not an official album. It's 40 minutes of new music by Drake, but don't call it an album. I guess the question is that albums generally have a grander scope and have a sort of overall theme, whereas this is just a bunch of songs that have been put out meshed together. It used to be that mixtapes just meant they were free. Anyway, it's sort of a lot of precaution here going on Drake's part, where he's releasing the album, but he's calling it a demo tape, and he's calling it a mixtape, and he's sort of saying, like, don't take it seriously. But here's a question for you. How much better is the actual album going to be? Is it not just going to be the same Drake stuff we're used to? I don't know. Drake and women. Dude, how many songs are you going to write about not marrying the women you're sleeping with? I'm actually watching Boardwalk Empire, as I've mentioned on a previous video. And it's kind of a similar theme where Nucky is like sort of in love with these women, but then he can't commit to them because they'll never get close enough, and he's the big boss. Is Drake just Nucky? It's weird how obsessed Drake is with women catching feelings for him and falling in love with him, and how they just don't understand. Drake, they understand by now. If they're with you, they know your music, okay? They know that that's what you're doing. So it's okay. I think all the women who are with you understand at this point. You're not going to marry them. You're only going to marry your mom. I mean, you only care about your mom. Then this song, Not You Too, with Chris Brown. I just want to go on a little rant here. At one point I heard someone comparing Chris Brown to R. Kelly. That's like comparing Vanilla Ice to Grandmaster Flash. Like, okay, they both have serious problems with women and should be in jail. Agreed. But R. Kelly is a genius who wrote, produced, and played every note on his album. He's close to Prince. That's what R. Kelly is. Chris Brown is just a guy who can sing and dance, who beats his girlfriends. So that's just a quick little thing there. Let's just not ever mix them up. Just because they're both criminals doesn't mean that one of them isn't a genius and the other isn't just kind of a hack. Anyways, I don't know, this song's okay. I don't like Drake's R&B stuff, but that's the thing that he does so well. Why does Drake stay on top? Because he knows how to appeal to people that like R&B. He knows how to appeal to people that like rap. He knows how to keep the ratio. Holy cow. Drake is like Hot 97. Drake is he is following precisely the formula of urban radio stations. And I say urban because that's the classification that they give. I don't mean that as a euphemism for African American, because that's not how it actually works. What I mean is today's hottest R&B and hip hop, right? That's how they all advertise themselves. But they're only ever 25% hip hop and only like 10% real hip hop. And most of it's all just R&B, because I think they go to demographics, and I think they know that women are more likely to listen to the R&B, so they're more likely to keep 50% of their listening base, and they're more likely to alienate that base if it's just a lot of aggressive hip-hop. It's like that's how Drake's albums are. Like they're the same proportion of like soft tracks to like I'm an actual rapper tracks. I don't know. Then the song 2C Slide. You might as well just call this song TikTok pandering. So, like you make these songs and all these songs about what kind of dances you're supposed to do are just made so that people do them on TikTok and then share them and then buy the track or stream the track. But it's okay because it's part of what makes Drake interesting. He stays with the times, but he also molds the times at the same... Oh, Christ, I did it again. I'm going to say the same word 3 times in the same sentence. He's shaped by the times, he molds the times, but he also helps to shape the times. It's okay, it's a good sentence. This is just the great paradox of Drake's hits, because this is like a hit, right? It's like a dance song. The dance, first of all, I can't figure it out. You lift your leg and then you lift your other leg. In my day, we called that walking. Oh, boomer snap! But like, it's just like a really long song that's really not very upbeat, and like, I don't want to dance. I want to fall asleep. And it's part of the weirdness of Drake is he loves his bed. His hook on that Travis Scott song is all about going to sleep. Out like a light. Like, this dude loves sleep. Like, if you could sleep and dance at the same time, I think you would be able to write a Drake song in your dreams. It's weird because the previous song was with Chris Brown, and this song is all about how great Michael Jackson is, which is just kind of a weird, at one point in the back, they're like, who's bad? And even in the chorus. But it's weird because he's saying, like, he says Jack and then takes a break and then says son. If you're going to be invoking Michael Jackson, you can't make me bored in between Michael Jackson's name. Jack, son, bring you satisfaction. Like, Michael Jackson is about kinetic energy and smoothness and, like, rhythm and flow. The opposite of Michael Jackson is Jack, son. But it's okay. It's a good song. I like it. That's the whole thing. That's how I felt about In My Feelings. That's how I felt about God's Plan. Every single one of Drake's singles is awesome. The first time I hear it, I go, okay, another Drake song. Second time, I'm like, meh, okay. And then the third time, I'm just like, Jack, son, lift your right leg, lift your left leg, fall on your ankles. Okay. Next track is called Desires with Future. I don't get Future. I don't get him. I never got him. I don't know. He sucks. I don't like that song. Time Flies, another kind of drunk R&B song where he's talking about calling a girl because he wants to be left, because he doesn't want to be alone. Again, Drake has left a lot of indications that he is a very severe alcoholic, and this is another one of the songs here. There's something about this that's very relatable, though. Again, we're talking about the modern age and the ability to call people when you're lonely and connect with them. I don't just mean booty call. I mean like an emotional booty call. That's what this song's about. Like, he presents this relatable loneliness, and then he makes it unrelatable because he's in an AMG, a fancy Mercedes. But still, it's like, this is relatable. I'm lonely. I want to hang out with somebody because if I'm lonely, that means I'm bad. The next track, Landed. That's one of his sort of like actual rap tracks on the album. Nice kind of like bragging song. He brags about having a Cartier pen. I'm just happy to have rappers rapping about anything other than watches. Pens. Could we get a whole thing of like rappers using fountain pens? Like Mont Blanc and Waterman, Like, can we talk about like dripping with your like $3,000 Waterman pens? Because that's actually like luxury that I can get behind. As opposed to like Louis Vuitton headbands. Just flush your money down the toilet, Okay. Oh, boomer snap! Then the track D4L has like Future on it, but he's not as terrible as he was in the last one, Young Thug. It's funny because my son heard this in the kitchen while I was listening to this morning, and he was like, it's songs like this, Dad, that makes all my friends think that they can make rap music. And it's true, most of his friends have rap names and make little rap songs with little trap beats. But they can't do this. There's something about this that's excellent, that he does that other people can't do. He just does. And it's just great. Then the track Pain, 1983. I don't know. He's a little bit... By the end of a Drake album, I'm kind of done. Like 3/4 in, I'm kind of done. So he talks about like being on the top left and making shots. Another thing about Drake's style is there's repetition. He repeats himself, and then he's repetitive. So he'll repeat choruses over and over again, especially that 2C Slide song. And I get it. That's how you get things to work in pop. But in this case, it's just too much. The chorus isn't good enough to really grab me. I don't really know who Playboy Cardi is or what he's doing on here. So I'm just going to have to say, is he the guy who sounds like the Chipmunks? Is that a thing now? I don't know. Feel free to call me a boomer and explain to me who Playboy Cardi is, because I have no idea. The dad in me wants to call him Playboy Cardi B just to annoy my kids. No, Dad, they're two different people. But again, the emptiness of wealth, this great zeitgeist theme, he just basically talks about not caring about anything. This guy only cares about sleeping with his mom in bed. That's it. The track Losses, a song about loss. Some really good production on this one. Very sparse, very empty. Again, one could argue that the emptiness of Drake's music reflects the emptiness of our spiritual selves in the 2000s. That's why I'm a professor, because I can improvise that. Brought to you by Wegmans brand Passion Fruit Seltzer. It's actually not my favorite flavor. I don't have a favorite flavor. That's how much I drink seltzer. From Florida with Love. At this point, you can see I wrote in my notes, can't take it anymore. I've had enough Drake. I have reached my daily allotment of Drake-ness. I don't care where you live. I don't care if you can't love her. I don't care if you can't marry her. I don't care if nobody loves you. I don't care if you don't care. I just want something else. Fortunately, the next two tracks are not so bad. Demons has a cool choral background over some trap beats. The guest rappers who are like nobodies, but they have really good verses, better than the sort of higher profile featurings on here. He says je t'aime in French, so he gets an A+ on that. Wait, Toby's on the wrong chair. Toby, down. No, Toby, that's the leather chair. You're going to scratch it. Toby! Toby! Man, Toby doesn't care. Toby's like Drake. I have this beautiful leather chair, and he's got his claws all over it. Ooh. And then the final track is called War. That's where he has a little bit of his faux island accent, or maybe it's a real island accent. I can never quite tell how much the sort of West Indian influence on Drake is authentic and how much of it is affected. Oh my God, that's exactly the kind of thing I like to have in the comments. But good kind of like droopy keyboard. And he actually sounds angry. He seems mad. He seems like he has a real emotion. So there you go. There's my rather long interview from the Seltzer Papi. I'm going to celebrate the end of this video by drinking some seltzer. That was supposed to be a lot more dramatic. Oh well. For Toby and my leather chair, there's the camera.